Slovakia has sadly once again demonstrated how quickly a country can slide backwards when its leadership is guided not by the principles of liberty and progress, but by a nostalgia for Soviet oppression and a large dose of primitive Christo-nationalism. This was already on full display 2 years ago, when the country elected an openly pro-Russian administration that ran on a platform of selling the country to foreign oligarchs and mandating social conservatism through extremist legislation targeting LGBTQ citizens. On the 26th of September 2025, the Parliament of Slovakia passed a new constitution that should alarm each and every person who cares even remotely about justice and equality under law. In this new constitution, the state begins by denying the very existence of non-binary, intersex, and third-gender individuals, claiming that only males and females exist in the eyes of the state, making it impossible for tens of thousands of Slovaks who fall outside the gender binary to obtain accurate documentation, and opens the door for state-sponsored discrimination in housing, employment, and healthcare. Additionally, and even more specifically for the focus of today's video, LGBTQ parents are considered criminals unless they flee the country. Ever since November 2025, last month, both adoption and IVF for queer parents have been completely banned. And let's be clear, this is not about protecting children, as it is all about destroying loving and competent families for the purpose of ushering in theocratic rule. It is a tool that has been used time and time again to protect the money and power of the 1% and keep the public in line. State-enforced gender norms, control over family life, and scapegoating of minorities are a tactic weak men always resort to. A tactic that never works for long and always leads to economic ruin and social collapse for the masses, and great increases in wealth for those at the top, bleeding the country dry. And so today, we need to dissect exactly what this amendment does, because over just a 2-year period, Slovakia has become a warning to all democratic and free societies of how quickly rights can disappear when leeches, fools, zealots, and tyrants are elected and given free rein over a nation. So let's get into it. What this amendment means in practice is that unless you are in a cisgender heterosexual marriage, it is impossible to become a parent. This not only erases LGBTQ couples, but even singles as well who want to have children. And to think, this is happening in a country with one of the lowest birth rates in the world. It is a country where the local population is rapidly collapsing, and even with a fairly high degree of immigration, the overall population is also still in decline. One would imagine that under such circumstances, the government would encourage all couples, and even singles, to either adopt or have biological children using IVF in order to help stabilize the birth rate. And yet, the current Slovak leadership is so incredibly anti-LGBTQ that it is willing to further suppress the country's birth rate if it means targeting our community and recycling old and disproven smears against us. And the really insane thing is that this new amendment is even more obscene than the law that was already in place since 2023. A law that had already banned queer couples from joint adoption, but still did not discriminate against single parents. But now, even single people are barred from being parents, either through adoption or IVF. And here's the thing, by codifying this sludge at the constitutional level, Slovakia is sending a clear message of what its opinion is of us, that they view LGBTQ people as inherently unfit to be parents. All at the same time as their population collapses, and all while study after study continue to confirm that same-sex parents and LGBTQ people in general make excellent parents, who raise well-adjusted children at equal rates to cisgender heterosexual parents. There is no use sugarcoating this dire situation. The current Slovak regime openly wants its people to believe the lie that LGBTQ parents are a danger to their own children, and that they make worse parents. But the data is exceptionally clear that this is simply not the case. Time and time again, studies show that children raised by same-sex parents fare just as well as children raised by straight parents. The sexual orientation of the parents simply doesn't determine the child's well-being or safety and is statistically a non-issue. But sadly, the vile creatures drafting these discriminatory and family-eviscerating laws don't care about the facts, only about their pathetic hate-filled feelings and religious agendas. But because they hate science, because they hate research, Because they hate the truth, let's talk about some facts. First, the American Academy of Pediatrics, after reviewing over 30 years of research, concluded that children raised by queer parents demonstrate resilience socially, psychologically, and sexually, even when accounting for economic, legal, or social disadvantages. What matters is not the parent's gender or sexuality, but the quality of parenting, support networks, and stability. Also, according to the University of Amsterdam's 2016 study, for kids raised in stable families, there is no difference in well-being with same-sex versus different-sex parents. It found no difference in children's general health, emotional well-being, coping, learning behaviors, or parent-child relationships. See, the claim that children raised by queer or same-sex parents are more likely to face abuse, psychological issues, identity problems, or developmental delay is not supported by empirical evidence. On the contrary, children of same-sex parents show comparable and sometimes even better outcomes regarding psychological health, school performance, and parent-child relationships. One more study worth highlighting comes from the Netherlands in 2021. Researchers tracked over 3,000 children with same-sex parents and nearly 1.5 million with different-sex parents, and looking at academic outcomes, the results were clear. Children of same-sex parents perform just as well when compared to children of heterosexual parents. When researching this video, I decided to pick 3 studies, but there were dozens more, all echoing the same conclusions, that what matters for a child's development is safety and love, stability, and competent parenting, not the parent's sexual orientation. Slovakia's adoption ban is not just discriminatory and cruel, but completely unjustified and fundamentally opposed to objective truth. I remember when visiting my mom's side of the family growing up as a kid, that they would sometimes mention that someone working against their own interests was, quote, biting themselves. For example, if someone was angry and kicked a wall and hurt their foot, they would say, "Oh, whoa, she is really biting herself today." In many ways, Slovakia is biting itself. It is in demographic freefall. Very few people want to stay in the country, and fewer still want to have children. Of course, there are many reasons for this that fall outside the scope of today's video, but what is relevant for now is the fact that Slovakia has decided to shrink its potential population further by banning queer parents who want to have families. Sometimes this is through adoption, which does not directly increase the population, but still gives kids a good and safe family to grow up in. Other times, LGBTQ parents use IVF and surrogacy to have biological children, which actually increases the overall population. What this shows is that discrimination against LGBTQ parents is not only baseless and flying in the face of countless studies, but it is also bad for the nation, bad for the economy, and makes an existing population collapse even more pronounced. But at the end of the day, the filthy creatures pushing through these legal regressions are not open to the studies we have covered. They don't even care about the fact that LGBTQ equality leads to the potential of more births. All they care about is religious extremism, promoting Russian propaganda, and keeping the population ignorant, hateful, and intolerant, as these are the easiest to control. It is a stark reminder that even in parts of Europe, the fight for equality is far from over. And it is a fight that I hope you will never stop fighting, because we deserve better. Slovakians deserve better. Europe deserves better. The world deserves better. These abhorrent leaders, like Fico, represent everything wrong with the planet, wrapped up in a single, potato-esque entity. And until we, the people across the world, collectively take our power back, tiny gross men will continue to bastardize and defile it at their every opportunity. So shame on Slovakia for giving this scum power, and shame on the EU for allowing Slovakia to trample the Charter of Fundamental Rights without biting consequences, because, as usual, the EU has opened a case that is likely to lead to little more than a slap on the wrist. You know, to some, this is just a news story, but to others it is their lives. My heart truly breaks for every queer person unfortunate enough to have been born in Slovakia. You deserve so much better than the oppressive sludge your country has given to you. But never lose hope. I truly believe the future is brighter than this present darkness, so never give up the good fight. And on that note, thank you friends for watching and spending time today with me as we seek to spread the word about important topics in the community. Please, consider liking this video and subscribing, as it really helps to please the algorithm gods. And
If you really enjoy these videos and want to support me directly so I can keep making them on a routine basis, consider joining the Queer Kingdom officially here on YouTube by becoming a member of the channel. But just your presence here today means the world to me, so thank you for watching, for caring about our global community, and please always remember that good things do still happen even in dark times. Together, I know we can truly make the world a safer and freer place for us all. Until next time, QK out.